I got a chance to see you walk through the fire a little bit, privately and publicly, this year in January. I got to
Oh,
ask
all
you
that
about
stuff.
that. So there's like generic conversations about sort of cancel culture and all those kinds of things. But as a human being, this to me is fascinating. Sort of there's the N-word highlight video. There's the criticism of the different guests, whatever the side is on the COVID pandemic. And I mean, there's a mass amount of attack on you outside of being a public persona, outside of being a comedian, podcaster. You're also a human being. So how did you survive that? How how did you sort of walk through that fire? Because you seem to do it with grace.
I used mushrooms. That was one way I did it.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
What's your, as Andrew Huberman would say, what was your protocol?
I took, it was probably less than a gram every day.
Every day.
Yeah. And I did a lot of like really hard working out. But also, I mean, there's a great benefit to going through anything difficult. And if you're aware, like in advance and while and during, like anything that's going to happen that's very difficult and troubling. The great benefit is it gives you an opportunity to grow. Gives you an opportunity to express yourself under pressure, to show your character, to show who you truly are. And it gives you an opportunity to see how you handle a very difficult situation. It also was fascinating as a person that's involved in media, right? Because what we're doing right now is media, even though, it seems like podcasts seem
Yeah.
like we're just having a conversation,
Yeah.
right? And they are. In that sense, it's kind of the purest form of media because what you're doing is you're doing it without any fanfare. You're doing it without any. There's no executives looming over your head or network or big meetings about ratings or any of that stuff. But it is media. But what I got to see is the wiring under the machine of how the rest of media would try to take me out. And, they, like when CNN would just be playing things over and over and back and forth, it was wild to watch. What was also wild to watch was people's responses because I gained 2 million subscribers during that time. Like the podcast never got bigger. It just kept growing and growing. It had never been bigger than it had been like at the end of all of it. It just made it bigger. And, ultimately if you've fucked up in the past or made mistakes or done something wrong, that gives you an opportunity to discuss those things and to apologize if you feel the need to apologize, and also to just address it. And so people under that kind of pressure, it's an opportunity for them to understand how you think about things. Honestly, how you actually honestly think about things. And there's no more honesty that you get out of a person than when that person is under extreme duress. So I think in that sense, I mean, it's horrible to say that it's a benefit, that it's a good thing that it happened, but it was a benefit.
But can you see how it can break a person? Because
Yes.
I've gotten the chance to experience small attacks here and there.
Yeah.
Ones that get to the core of things. Like even just talking to about Russia and Ukraine, to Stephen Hawking or Oliver Stone, looking at different perspectives, you gain a relative, for me, feeling like a sizable number of people who really don't like you.
Yeah.
And say things about you that are that may be cut deep for a reason I don't understand why. It's just my own psychology.
Well, it's also because you can't defend yourself because they're saying it and you're not there, and you don't have any opportunity for a rebuttal. And if you do have a rebuttal, you're doing it publicly and you're opening it up to the whole world to chime in. And there's a general tendency that people have towards negativity when they're interacting with strangers online, especially about controversial subjects. And even if it's only 10% of the people, it's 1 out of 10. That's a lot. That's a lot of negativity when you're dealing with thousands and thousands of tweets.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'm just a very self-critical person, but I hear their words and I probably somewhere deep inside see the truth in the criticism, in some aspect of the criticism, and that's why it hurts.
Well, it's and one aspect of you,
Right.
but when you're reading it, it's so it's boiled down to this one thing, as if that one thing defines you totally. Like if you've made a mistake, if you've said something that you shouldn't have said, or if you said something and maybe you should have considered it more carefully, giving the gravity of the situation. That's just a part of being a person, and it's also part of being a person where you're communicating with things publicly in real time, thinking out loud, which is what we do. It's complex, and most people don't do it. And you're gonna have genuine hot takes where people just see what you said and go, "Why did he say that? Fuck him." He doesn't know anything about. He doesn't live in Ukraine. It's like there's people that are going to have takes on that in that way. And then there's also going to be these disingenuous people who just use any kind of controversial topic or subject as an opportunity for them to get clicks or views.
But the number of those people can be quite large.
Quite large.
And so going back to, do you think it can destroy a person? Because I kind of worry about this. And you're, in many ways, but in this way, an inspiration that it didn't seem to have destroyed you. But
I kept doing shows. I kept doing stand-up. I ignored everything. I didn't read any of it.
So it is possible to just ignore.
100%. Yes. Yeah. I ignored it all.
But you have
I knew it was there.
Like your family didn't bring it up.
My family was very, very aware of it. My wife was aware of it.
What was the conversation like? If your wife is aware of it, is there like a rule? Don't pretend it's not happening.
No.
Just like what?
Well, I tell her don't ever read.
Pass the green beans.
I don't ever let her read negative articles to me. I don't want them. I don't care. I go, that's a person's opinion. You take a person's opinion, you write it down. It doesn't give it any more relevance. Like that person, could have had that opinion in silence. They could have had it with some friends at dinner. They don't like me, whatever. I don't want to read it. I don't want to absorb it. I don't even know them, especially if I'm not there. And especially if it's some biased and it's not an objective opinion of me. It's this. They have a narrative and they want to stick to that narrative and they want to write an article and they piece it all together, make you look like a piece of shit. And that's their prerogative. They're completely allowed to do that. But I shouldn't absorb that. I shouldn't take that in. You're not supposed to be taking in the opinion of the world.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be taking in the opinion of small groups of people that you encounter so that you get an understanding of how you make them feel. And then maybe you say to yourself, maybe I come across too rude, or maybe I come across too insensitive, or maybe I could do better in this way or that way. And that's how we sort of shape our personalities, and that's how we develop our social skills. But when the people don't know you and they have this distorted narrative of you, and there's fucking millions of people. There's so many people. You can't
I think
be
there's billions
sane.
now, actually.
I mean, millions of people that are communicating about something. Like during the height of the attempt to cancel me or whatever that is. I don't know how many people were involved in that.
People take this kind of stuff seriously, but the problem is the false narratives take hold, and then you have meetings, you have groups, it builds on top of each other, and there's this outrage, and then it reaches you at some point, and it can just have these destructive effects. And
it can, but it also sometimes doesn't. And in my case, it didn't. It didn't work.
What lessons did you draw from that? Mushrooms, exercise?
Mushrooms and exercise. Exercise is critical. I don't think the mushrooms by themselves would have worked. But that's the thing that I use for everything is the brutal exercise. Like my exercise routines are horrible. And because of that, everything else is easier. I create my own bullshit. And my own bullshit is so much harder. And it's not just that. It's also sauna and cold plunge and these torture sessions. Enduring those. When you endure those, it makes enduring other things much easier. And it's also an understanding of what's happening. Like you have to know media. You have to understand what the hot take, YouTube, social media, podcast, ecosphere. is doing. Like if they're talking about, Lex Fridman said this and we have to comment on that, and Lex gets canceled in all capital letters on a YouTube clip. And if you watch that, you're fucking crazy. What are you doing? Absorbing all this negativity? It's not good for you. You are you. You. And generally if you've made a mistake, and generally if people are upset with you.